Let's just take a moment to realize and acknowledge that that last podcast was nuts. I gave you guys so much to digest. Freaking crazy. Let me get comfortable real quick. I threw a lot at you guys. It's not meant for everyone. Mainly, most of it, try to focus around, the martial arts aspect because this is a philoso podcast. That being said, I'm just going to set the record here. Or, so what's that? What's that phrase, the idiom? I'm going to set the record straight. So this isn't about like me ranting about what fell apart and dissecting it by chapters. Now, I got something else for that. But this is more so like, it's about where I'm at now. The purpose of it, at least as to the reason why I started this thing, is to kind of get people inspiration, give them inspiration, because I am not a clear example of what, perfect work ethic is or star athlete is. But I am a good example and a clear example that it's never too late to start. So, like I said, it's the Ronin Club. Each day we live, each day we breathe, each day we are able to take things for granted, kind of recalibrate and think, is this worth taking for granted? But as far as anything else goes, this is where I'm at right now. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully you guys, I'm not saying this to brag. This isn't a braggadocious thing. Hopefully you guys can take this with a grain of salt and apply it to your lives. Maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try that. Maybe I should do this or try something, whatever it is that you've never really told anybody about, but try it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I want to do is like, my entire purpose for this is to kind of inspire people to do things and try things that they never wanted to try out of fear of looking stupid. You know what I mean? I'm stoked. I got this really cool job at this restaurant. If you guys are in Jersey, it's called Rat's Restaurant. So I'm going to be working with a lot of prestigious chefs, which is so sick because I've been watching this TV show called The Bear. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you go watch it. It's more of a story than it is. Well, it's not like one of those, Top Chef type of shows. It's a really cool storyline, and I'm not going to ruin it for you. And I'm not going to go into that, but it's a good show. You should watch it. I got this job through a student who trains at my gym. Very grateful for it. And I'm super stoked because it's perfect time to be able to be present for my son. That being said, on the things that I'm going to be working on and where I'm at in my life right now, the number one on my list of things to do for 2026 is be a freaking sick dad, dude. I want to be the best dad possible. And people keep telling me I'm a good dad, and I'm not comparing to people, but I definitely don't feel that way. And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to feel good. You know what I mean? I'm trying to feel good. It's not what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm doing because I care about my son. I want him to have memories. I have memories when I was a kid with my parents. I had good memories. And I want to be able to make my son happy. Seeing him happy, seeing him joyful, that really even like when we're in the house, when I was a kid, I used to hate being at home. I mean, to this day, I still hate being at home, but I hated being at home. But I put myself in my little boy shoes when I was little, and I think, what would I have loved to do if I can go back in time? Like, what would younger Omar want? So I do that with my son. I think about my son, and I'm like, okay, he would want his dad engaged, which is another reason why I deactivated my personal Instagram because I want to be a little bit more present for my son. And I'll be honest, when I had my personal Instagram, I was comparing myself to people and I'm not like this, my business isn't thriving. And I'd be on Instagram all day, right? And it's unhealthy. And realistically, some people do it, some people don't. Some people are on TikTok, whatever, I get it. But social media, it takes you away from really living life. And I decided to take that out of the equation, I'm using my business Instagram, and if I'm not posting about business, I don't need to be on it, right? Have my laptop for that, so if I ever use it, I don't download the app. I just go online through my computer. So there's that, the dad life, dude. So that's one thing that I really want to be focusing on. Another thing that I want to be getting into. I want to get into cars, right? And there's so many different parts of cars, the specs, the the way it looks, the body, the engine, the all this other stuff. There's also newer cars, older cars. There's electric cars. There's just so much stuff, and then you got to think about the functionality. What's the purpose of the vehicle? There's just so much behind it, and I am stuck trying to figure out like what I want to get into cars for. And I personally want to get into a lot of things, mainly to pass it down to my son. When I was a kid, my dad, tried teaching me a few things, and I would just turn him down, like just not pay attention or whatever. And maybe it was like the only thing my dad really cared about was martial arts, which I'm very grateful for. But I don't want to be that way. And I'm not saying it's bad on my dad's part or anything, because they also didn't teach me Spanish, and they said it's because I didn't want to learn. Bro, I'm a kid. Of course, I'm not going to want to learn. Your job is to teach me. But that being said, I want to get into cars. So I got a funny story for you guys. There's a mechanic shop down the street from my house. It's a really old like mechanic shop. And this guy has like this truck in the front. It's like, I don't know, it's like a Chevy. It's a Ford for sure. It's not a Chevy. It's a Ford, and it's classic. Like what I mean by classic, it's not like pimped out. It looks all rusted. It looks like Mater from Cars, the TV show or the movie. And the guy has the cartoon eyes up on the front windshield, and he when I walked in, I just walked in and I was like, "Hey, by the way, I have like zero social skills sometimes." I just walked in and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Hey, how can I help you?" And I said, "Hey, like I was curious. Would you be interested in teaching me about cars?" Like, and he's looked at me like blank stare, like, yeah, like, what do you want to know? And we just started talking, and I got to the point where I was able to get him to, well, I asked him if he would be willing to kind of like show me the ropes, and I would be like a fly on the wall, and he would just like explain to me what things are. And he said, sure. And we worked out a schedule, and I'll be coming in like once a day to kind of go and like learn about, I know how to change oil, but it's like, the mechanics of how changing oil and this and that and how vehicles work and where, the transmission, all this other stuff. Now that would have never happened if I never just took that chance of going. The guy could have just said, "Get the hell out of my shop," right? But I digress. I got that, and I'm going to be getting into cars. But I also thought about it, and I'm like, cars are expensive. I can't, like, I don't have that kind of money. I don't have a garage. Like, I can't, it's not my place. I can't just, it made me think about the next route, which is motorcycles. Now, I've been wanting to do motorcycles for the past 2 years, mainly because it saves on gas. And two, I want to feel that like feeling of that you hear about a lot of people talk about. It's like, I guess it's like a science behind it too, like that rewires the brain. It's I really don't know the specs, and I'm not gonna pretend like I know the benefits of it, but I do know that there's some actual psychological benefits to it, to riding a motorcycle. Now, this is a funny story. I remember when I was younger, my dad took me and my brother. So I have two brothers. One of them, the one that I told you was murdered. He was younger. He was like, at the time, he was probably like, I think he was like maybe 8 years old. And my dad took us all to the gun shop, and he was like, "Hey, check these guns out, blah, blah." He was like showing us, "Hey, which one do you want?" Like kind of which one would you like? Not let me buy it for you, right? Which one do you like? Which one do you like? And I showed him like I think it was like a Beretta or something. And my dad's like, "Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool." And like, just kind of, we're all nerding out about the guns. And then, you spring forward, I think maybe a couple years later. I think, no, I think it was like a year later. We, I go to the gym, my dad's gym, Tiger Martial Arts Academy. We pull in, and, we usually there like 30 minutes before, and my dad shows up, and he pulls out. Let me just explain to you, okay? He just picked it up. That's why he pulled it out. But let me just explain to you the type of person my dad is. So he pulls up, and he shows up with this huge black bag. And I'm like, go ahead, open it. The dude pulls out a sniper rifle. And we live in Los Angeles. And I look at him like, "Why do you have a sniper rifle? It's our Second Amendment right. We should be able to have a gun." And I'm like, "Okay, I get that. But are you going to use it? Are you going to go hunting? Why would you pay for that?" right? So my dad has this reputation of doing that, right? So the reason I bring that up is because I had told my dad I wanted to get into motorcycles, right? Well, it turns out my dad is in Nicaragua riding motorcycles, and he's just gloating and showing me all these cool videos of him riding a bike. And I'm like, dude, come on. So it's so goofy, man. But I love my dad for that because it also challenges me. And my dad is interesting, you know? It's like, you know, he lives his whole life about the whole, you know, putting money away in your 401k and investing. And now he's having to sell his house in California because it's too expensive and his pension can't cover it. And all these different things. And it's like, you know, I realized sometimes life throws curveballs, and he's like, "Man, I'm just gonna sell it, and move to Nicaragua." Like, you know what I mean? He could do that, you know, and it's just so interesting, you know, how life happens. But that being said, you know, him living in Nicaragua also inspired me because, you know, it made me realize where I'm at right now, and it's like I want to travel. You know, I want to visit my dad in Nicaragua. I want to go to a few places I have on my bucket list right now. Japan is a huge one of them, and there's this place. I think it's in. I'm not too sure. It's somewhere in Japan. I don't know if it's Osaka or Tokyo. I think it's Tokyo, but they have this like huge center where like a lot of cars meet, and it's like popular on YouTube and whatnot. I want to go there. I want to go obviously some certain gyms and train in Japan. I also want to go to Australia, visit my friend Harry. He has a gym in, I don't know if it's Sydney, it probably is, but he has a gym out there. Go visit, train there, get my butt kicked. Go to New Zealand, maybe go to Rome or Greece, Italy, you know, some cool spots. And just visit. Those have been a huge on my bucket list. And, you know, I get afraid of traveling. And not afraid like I'm afraid something's going to happen, but more like leaving my son. That's the hardest part, dude. Like going somewhere and like knowing you can't take your kid with you. Or you can, but it's just not. So sometimes I'm like, go to Japan or be at home in boring Jersey with my son. I think I'll just stay home with my son. And it's been rough, but you know what? It's not going to be forever. So, next one I want to talk about is the podcast and a couple of things with that. But before I get into that, so I was writing a book. I finished it already, but I realized it's not something I want. And I think about my son. It's not something that I want him to read. And that made me think about, if I don't want my son reading it, why would I want strangers reading it? So I got back to writing, and my writing is more this time. When I write, it's going to be more of a I'm present with my son through his life, right? Because God knows when, you know, I'll pass on to the next life. But in the meantime, my writing is going to be more of not so much of a little boy crying, but more so a man looking back at his past and not recounting each detail, but glazing over the details in order to get to the message of the story. And it's been difficult because I've had to read some things and, you know, just kind of replays some things. But yeah, that's another thing of where I'm at, you know, and it's been pretty cathartic, to be honest. It's nice. But that being said, you know, got me interested because in part of my story was playing guitar, you know, and it got me interested in playing guitar again. So that I picked that up, started playing guitar, and I started doing jujitsu again, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, my business, dad life, motorcycles, travel, you know, podcast, writing, guitar, what else? Jiu-jitsu, my new job. You know, it's not glamorous, but you know, it just is. And I think that's okay sometimes, you know. But I started this podcast, like I said before, is not really for like therapy or anything or justification. It's also not me venting and just complaining because you guys got your own problems, right? But it's about focusing on like the bright side of life because sometimes, you know, we tend to, at least I do, and I know for a fact everyone does, because if that wasn't the case, then mental health therapy wouldn't be popular, right? But I realized that I got to live with intent. If I'm not living with intent, being honest and reevaluating my life, then I'm lying to myself, and that's clearly not healthy, right? So this brings me to like, you know, the depth part. So this is where I'm gonna get a little bit serious. So if you guys don't like it, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. unashamedly, I will admit I am a Christian. Now, my faith is not perfect, and I don't ever intend to pretend like I am perfect. But I've realized that without my faith, I am nothing. And what I mean by that is there's no substance behind anything I'm saying because it is all relative, right? My truth can be whatever. And I'm not here to debate people. I'm not here to tear people down. I just realized, one day we will all die. And this is something that I've really had to wrestle with. And I had to come to terms with this pretty early, but I fought it for a very long time. And it wasn't up until recently that I realized this is something that I cannot expect people to understand, and it isn't fair for me to. So, quick story. August last year, I had a very, very horrible night terror. I had to call out from work. I ended up going to, I was literally shaking. I felt the same exact experience I had when I had my first blood clot in 2018. Same exact experience. It's like you getting cold chills. It was during summertime. I was getting cold chills. Then I felt like I was going to throw up. Then I felt like I was going to have diarrhea. Then I felt like I just felt sick. And what ended up happening was I remember I was laying next to my son in bed and I got up. And on the way to the bathroom, I felt like I was going to collapse. I sat there on my hands and knees praying in my freaking skivvies, bro. I was praying to God to give me life, not to take it from me yet, because my son is still young. I want to be around for his life. I was terrified. Drove myself to the ER, and then they did tests on me, and they said, you're okay, you're fine. And I laughed because I didn't feel fine at all whatsoever. Now, I bring this up because I realize, for the longest time I played this sob story for myself. It's like trying to explain to someone what it's like to get in a fight or to get ready for an MMA fight. They will never understand unless they themselves have been through it. Well, that was me. And I came to terms with, after that, I had to really come to terms with my perspective on death. Now, death has always been haunting me. It's been following me for a very long time, and it's uncomfortable to admit that I was afraid of it. We all know death is there. Every single one of us knows. It's on the news. It's all over the place. But when it comes knocking on your door, you're left terrified. And then you're kind of like, well, what happens when I die? And there's just so many questions that pop into your head. Well, I did the exact thing that everyone on their deathbed would do without being on my deathbed. And I've been doing that for a while. I looked at the Bible. I evaluated different religions. And it just makes sense. If Jesus claims to be God, then scriptures say, out of the body, you're present with the Lord. So, Paul the Apostle says, to live is for Christ and to die is gain. So it's a win-win. And, at first you would think, in America, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's what you say. But really, you never know. There's so many different religions. But it's like, yeah, but the biggest church and strongest church is the underground church in China that is being persecuted by the government. They are not afraid of death. And that made me think. Little Omar is over here sitting on his bed crying because he doesn't want to die. Yet people are being persecuted and killed for their faith in Christ. So, with that Bible verse in mind and with that analogy, I thought to myself, so death is not my enemy because Christ already conquered it. So how should I view death? And it changes my perspective on everything, like how I live now. And I am, as God is my witness, this has been so liberating. I see death now as a friend because with death, you only face it once and then you're present with the Lord. Now, it's either God exists or he doesn't exist. If he doesn't exist, then we just don't exist. We cease to exist and we just get deleted from existence by the universe. Nothing happens. So who cares, right? But if there is God and there is a life after, we will pay for whatever we've done in this world if we don't come to terms with Jesus, right? And that is something that has really affected me, and I know will only make sense to someone who's been on that like silver lining. You don't know if you're going to die one day or live one day. But now that I've kind of come to this perspective, I realize now that the only person who's actually going to know our time is him. So, what are we going to do with the life that we have now? Am I going to continue to live in fear that one day, you know, my son's going to look back and be like, oh man, my dad didn't work a successful 9 to 5 job, or he didn't get his credentials in college. I'm so ashamed of my dad. No, right? My son is going to look back and be like, dude, my dad was freaking there, bro. I look at everything through the lens of my son. How is he going to view his dad, right? Not how is he, he's not going to think how successful was my dad's business. Death has been something I've been afraid of, and I realize now it's something that will carry me off into the other life, because this one kind of sucks. Just being honest, you got to pay for health insurance. You also got to pay for when you die. When you get put in the ground and you rot, you still got to pay for that too, even though you're not going to be around to pay for it. It just sucks, dude. So it's wild. This is what life looks like for me moving forward. I'm going to pick up some hobbies. Be wise about it. I'm not going to just recklessly spend money. I'm going to travel. I want to get better at cooking. And I'm saying all this because I really kind of want to inspire you guys to kind of do the same. If there's something on your mind that you've been wanting to do for a very long time, dude, do it now. Now is the time to do it. If you want to get into capoeira or breakdancing, or you want to pick up photography, or you want to do it and do these things, but you also don't want to look stupid, dude, it's okay looking stupid, because that's how you learn. And sometimes I feel like we are so coddled in this world that we are afraid of making mistakes. And dude, I mean, I'm making a podcast. People are going to criticize me. Who cares? There's other people in other countries who don't have they don't have a MacBook. You know what I mean? They don't have a microphone. They don't have the accessibility of having Amazon Prime, like there's a lot more to my story, but I didn't have all these things. So now I'm just going to take advantage of what I do have. And we all have visions, and I have a vision I'm going after. But I do want to say this. A vision is different from goals. A goal is, I want to lose 50 pounds by June. That's a goal. A vision is something that it's a purpose. I see a purpose in this. And finding out what your purpose is something that's different from your goal. And if you know how to separate the two, that's the money right there. Now, that to be said, I'm staying in my lane. I'm not chasing outcomes anymore. I just really want to focus on essentially what I have. And with all this to be said, I hope you guys have a great week. If you're figuring things out, guess what? You're not alone, and it's never too late. So pay attention to what your life is actually like, not what others are doing. It's easy to get caught up in that, But it's like we're all kids. We're just all kids trying to figure out life, because this is my first time living as 35-year-old. I'm never going to be 35 again, just like I was never 25, right? The past 10 years are the past 10 years for me. 2026 moving forward, I definitely don't want to be in the same position I'm in now. I want things to move forward, and the best way I can do it, and the only person who's going to be able to do that is me, right? Obviously, whatever happens moving forward from here is my responsibility. I got to be proactive. I want to encourage you guys. If you're not there yet, you will be. Just chip away at the marble. Got a huge marble block in front of you. Your job is to chip away at it and just take it one day at a time. This is Philoso. This is what life looks like moving forward. That being said, welcome to the Ronin Club, ladies and gentlemen. Take it easy.